I'm not yet in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine, but I am on my way. So, sunset show here from Tennessee the day before I do fly to the Eastern time zone for the big event to kick off this 2025 NFL season. John Lynch will be the 49ers representative speaking to the media. That is scheduled for Wednesday. No, we do not expect Kyle Shanahan to be at the NFL Combine. He normally doesn't go. We haven't seen him there in a few years. Last season, the 49ers netted a really good draft class, even though Kyle Shanahan didn't go. So it is not a big deal. I think a lot of people on the internet trying to make it a bigger deal than it really is. But this is something for the scouting department. A lot of the coaches from the Shanahan tree, including Sean McVay, don't regularly attend. The 49ers did fine in last season's draft. Good haul, Malik Mustafa, Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney. They did fine despite the fact that Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff weren't in attendance to watch 40-yard dashes in Indianapolis. They can zoom in for any of the prospect interviews. And then the more serious prospect interviews, the 30 visits, you can imagine that Kyle Shanahan will be around the 49ers facility when those do happen. Anyway, when I talk to Lynch on Wednesday, Deebo Samuel is obviously going to be a topic of discussion because we have most recently heard from John Lynch at the postseason press conference with Kyle Shanahan, where he said that the 49ers aren't just going to give Deebo Samuel away. I still think they don't just want to give Deebo Samuel away, but they were shopping him all the way back to last season. So the Deebo Samuel trade has been a distinct possibility ever since they drafted Ricky Pearsall. That's how this league works. You try to replace talent that you might think will be declining. You typically try to get ahead of it by a year. I don't think the 49ers really got ahead of anything with Deebo Samuel here. Maybe he'll bounce back, but you typically try to replace veteran talent that's pricier with cost-controlled rookie talent. They drafted Ricky Pearsall knowing that it was going to be impossible, at the very least, very hard to keep all of their veteran receivers plus a first-round rookie on the team for the indefinite future. They were able to do so for a year, and it doesn't look like that's going to continue here into 2025. So we're going to get to ask Lynch about where things stand with Deebo Samuel. I think in the immediate aftermath of the season, John Lynch wasn't about to play any of his cards. He wasn't about to say, oh, yeah, we're going to trade him, or yeah, we're planning to cut him with a post-June 1st designation. It is obvious that a player who has delivered as many big plays, as many game-changing moments as Deebo Samuel, who's actually set some NFL records when it comes to his prolific ability after the catch and after contact, it's obvious that the 49ers are going to try to recoup some value if he does indeed leave. And I do expect John Lynch to leave all options on the table. Now, the reason the Combine is a big deal from a functional standpoint is that this is the first event where all the agents, all the executives are in the same convention center, in the same general area. Restaurants, bars, people can go to dinner, people can talk. We might finally start to get an idea about the potential trade value of Deebo Samuel. Because up until this point, a lot of rumors online, people talking about 5th-round picks, conditional 3rd-round picks. Oh, he might only command the 6th-round pick. Nobody really knows what they're talking about because the market hasn't had a chance to really blossom. And we talk about deadline pressure. Deebo Samuel's got an option bonus on March 22nd that if the 49ers don't pick it up, it just vests into base salary, which is not guaranteed for this season. So it's not a mandatory move date. They can still keep Deebo Samuel on the roster beyond then, but there is a contractual trigger on March 22nd. And then there's another obvious point of deadline pressure with the NFL draft because you're going to want to get draft compensation back that you can use this year if you do trade Deebo Samuel. So deadlines that will materialize action, those are coming up over the course of the next 2 months. But the first true convention to spur action, to develop a little bit of a market so that agents and executives can talk about trade compensation and a potential new contract, because Deebo Samuel is going to need a new deal as part of this trade. That's obviously something that comes with it since he's entering that lame duck year. That's why the trade was probably requested in the first place. The first chance to really kick all that off is here at the NFL Combine. It's wild how quickly things move. 3 years ago, I remember sitting at the Combine and John Lynch was talking about the buzz around Deebo Samuel. He was coming off of the 2021 season, heading into 2022, and he was eligible for that new contract. And it would still be months before he signed at the point of the combine. But we were talking about how Torrey Dandy was the agent for Deebo Samuel, for DK Metcalf, and for A.J. Brown. And all three of those guys saw big movement that offseason. Obviously, A.J. Brown literally changed teams. The Eagles traded for him that offseason. That paid off for them. They gave him a new contract worth $25 million annually. Then the Seattle Seahawks signed DK Metcalf for a deal worth about $22 or $23 million annually. It was a little bit less. And then Deebo Samuel signed on for about $23 million annually. He was the last of the three. And we were wondering how those dominoes were going to fall. And Deebo got the most fully guaranteed money out of those three guys. I think it was a valuable 3-year partnership for the 49ers and Deebo Samuel, but obviously times have changed. Brock Purdy has since emerged. I mean, that 2022 offseason, we talked to John Lynch right before the 49ers drafted Brock Purdy. That was the Brock Purdy combine, right? Now that I think of it in 2022. So NFL, not for long. Robert Saleh is now on the 49ers coaching staff. The last time that we talked to John Lynch, it was with Kyle Shanahan at the end of the season press conference, and Robert Saleh was unemployed at the time, or technically a consultant for the Packers, and his season was about to finish up. And the 49ers were considering what to do with Nick Sorensen and company, and they decided to part ways with Sorensen. They fired Brian Schneider, the special teams coordinator. They ended up bringing back Robert Saleh after some drama, right? But it all worked out. I remember last year at the owners' meetings, we talked to John Lynch about the vision with Brandon Staley becoming an assistant head coach. Well, Staley is now with the Saints. Lynch was talking about the evolution of the 49ers defense last offseason. Well, now he's going to be talking about the evolution with Robert Saleh back as the team's defensive coordinator. Obviously, good news for the 49ers. I'm going to ask about special teams. I'm going to ask about mentality. Kyle Shanahan's probably not going to be there, but John Lynch is the general manager. He can talk about the general ongoings of this 49ers team, and I think that a big point of emphasis this offseason has to be on the top-down focus on special teams. They haven't called a fake punt since 2014. They haven't called a single fake punt in the Shanahan-Lynch era. I think that you've got to play to win on special teams. You can't play to lose, and even if the coaching staff's not going to be there, I think that that's something worth a discussion with John Lynch. The rest of the coaching staff has to be filled out. I'm sure that Kyle Shanahan will be doing that back in Santa Clara over the course of this event. We will, yes, have discussions about the O-line. I'm sure Dominic Pooney's name will come up. Maybe the 49ers have a model on which to build their draft picks now that Dominic Pooney has not just succeeded, but he's succeeded in year one, which is so hard to do in any system. But the 49ers system has not been kind to rookies, to rookie offensive linemen. The fact that you got Dominic Pooney in the 3rd round out of Kansas last year and has markedly improved the 49ers offensive line already. You want more of those hits to fortify the offensive line moving forward. So we're going to be looking at the offensive line prospects, starting with Will Campbell out of LSU. We're going to be seeing how they run, how they lift, how they interview over the course of this week at the Combine. But maybe that Pooney model is something that the 49ers would like to replicate, and I think it's going to be worth talking about that with John Lynch in Indianapolis, because a lot of people were complaining after the draft last year. They didn't invest enough. A 3rd-round pick wasn't high enough. Well, guess who the highest-graded rookie offensive lineman in the 2024 season was? It was Dominic Pooney. So don't get too fixated on the draft pick. Joe Montana was a 3rd-round pick. And there's a lot of really, really good 3rd-round picks. Travis Kelce was a 3rd-round pick. I'm sure 49ers fans aren't thrilled that I bring him up, but somebody tweeted the other day, what a steal Travis Kelce was as the 3rd-round pick. It's the greatest 3rd-round value in NFL history. Sorry, Joe Montana exists. And you know what? Dominic Pooney exists too. Can't forget about him when talking about the 3rd round and the offensive line. Now, I think, and I mentioned this, you could watch the video from the other day. We're in Dolores Park in San Francisco. Now we're in Williamson County in Tennessee. But the other day, I mentioned we can't talk about Deebo Samuel without mentioning that Ricky Pearsall burst onto the scene with a massive 2-game stretch to end last season. So I can't wait to talk to John Lynch about Ricky Pearsall, the 18 targets he had, 210 yards, over the past 2 weeks. I think that Ricky, especially in the context of what we see from Brock Purdy and the timing throws, the intermediate pass game, the deeper pass game, the need for separation, which I think was the biggest 49ers offensive weakness last year. They ranked last in that category. I think that Ricky Pearsall might be an upgrade over Deebo Samuel if Ricky bumps up a spot in that receiving order. Of course, Myles Garrett is out there, but he's still under contract with the Browns. So John Lynch, he's not going to be able to talk about him. That's tampering. Same thing with Joey Bosa. He's still under contract with the Chargers. Even Khalil Mack, who's scheduled to be a free agent in less than a month, still technically under contract. So Lynch is not going to be able to specifically address those guys. But he will specifically be able to talk about the safety position. And John Lynch is a former Hall of Famer at safety. And Malik Mustafa gave up the fewest coverage yards and the fewest yards per cover snap of any DB in the entire NFL this year as a rookie. So John Lynch, I think he knows a thing or two about safety play. I can't wait to talk about Malik. And then I want to know what the plan is opposite Malik, and what do they really think of Jair Brown's second season? We typically get some more candid thoughts with some removal from the regular season. Is Jair Brown ready to fill that role? Where do things stand with Talanoa Hufanga? I mean, Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, whom we'll also ask John Lynch about. I think that the agent dynamic, agents, executives in the same spot, we can finally start to glean what the market for those players, those pending free agents is going to be. And it's going to be interesting to talk about that. And of course, I want to verify that the 49ers planning to bring in some kicking competition for Jake Moody. Do not expect them to cut Jake Moody, but bring in some competition if you're the 49ers. Why the heck not? I think it's something that's almost mandatory that you have to do because he's got the talent, which is why you don't want to cut him. Started 14 of 15, but then he missed 11 of 20 after the high ankle sprain. The high ankle sprain happened on kick coverage. They saw their kick coverage injure 2 kickers within the span of 5 days. Special teams was horrific for the 49ers. So they've got to get that figured out. Absolutely have to get that figured out. As you know, I wrote on the San Francisco Standard about the 49ers special teams in the last part of our State of the 49ers series. And to me, it's a top-down thing. I referenced that fake punt stat. And I'm not going to be afraid to talk about that this week with John Lynch and company. So Deebo Samuel, obviously the Brock Purdy contract. I don't even know if I got to that in my little list here until now, but that's an obvious. The 49ers, I'm sure Purdy's representation will be at the combine. Maybe that starts to spur along talks. We do have a range for the NFL's salary cap size, $227.5 million to $231.5 million. Or is it 237? It's a big jump. No, sorry. It's 271.5 million. 277.5 million. I have this in my head, I swear. 277.5 million to 281.5 million. I was about to say that's a little low. It's a little low, Lombardi. You have to up that number. So the cap has gotten to a point where it's going to significantly increase again. The range is 277.5 to 281.5. I have repeated several times that the 49ers would not be able to truly engage on a substantive talk about Brock Purdy's contract until they had the salary cap. And now they have a general range. We're probably going to get that exact number within the course of the next few days. And then it's time to rock and roll as the calendar is going to turn to March and free agency and then the draft. But throughout it all, the 49ers can negotiate and finalize that deal with Mr. Brock Purdy. So Deebo, Purdy's contract, Deebo potential trade, obviously. Salary cap maneuvering. As I've said, the 49ers have enough money to do what they need to with Deebo Samuel, whether it be a trade and absorbing dead money or a post-June 1st cut. If they don't trade him to push the dead money hit back, they're flexible, which is a good thing. Robert Saleh and the rest of the staff. We'll see if Saleh, maybe he's there. I doubt it if Kyle Shanahan won't be there. We'll talk Pearsall, Mustafa, get Lynch's expertise there. Get some hints on Jake Moody and the kicking position future. And I always like to talk about that 49ers offensive line. So you guys get a really nice Tennessee sunset. How about that? Beautiful, right? It's time to roll. See you guys in Indy.